Yo, what is going on, guys? My name is TamezTech and welcome to a brand new video. Today we are ending off the first day of the Go Battle weekend. So we got another 3 teams, the last 3 teams for what I believe was Saturday of the Go Battle weekend. I can't say we did amazingly, but with the last team we went straight 5-0. It was quite amazing. So let's go ahead and get into these battles so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So for the first team, you guys saw how the last video went. We were seeing mud slap left and right, so I said, you know what, I need a little bit of the taste of that. And yeah, we are checking out fairy double slap. Now, did we go positive with this team? I don't want to spoil anything, but man, what an unfortunate series of events for us. We got Cradley in the lead in the first match onto our Togekiss. Honestly, not a terrible lead, but these acids do add up. Rock Tomb will knock out where Aura Sphere will not. But I don't really have like a super good answer to this Pokemon regardless, so I'd like to stay in here and maybe do some plays here. My opponent actually makes a really decent catch into Corviknight, and dude, like, where is my team supposed to go? I have literally no play with my entire team. Thankfully though, that Aura Sphere chip and dip does allow us to knock out and farm down with a water pulse. My opponent actually throws on alignment there, which is really good for me because we get an entire free mud slap worth of energy. Which means that we should be able to fully farm this down before they get another payback. Maybe they'll get another air cutter, but a payback I do not think should be reached. There is the air cutter, and my opponent pivots into a Dusknoir. I know this is a double resisted body slam, but I'm not going to get to another move, so any chip is good chip. That's about 2 mud slaps worth of damage. I will take it. We bring in our Marowak into the Dusknoir, and dude, these mud slaps are doing so much damage. It's actually ridiculous. Pretty safe no shield from us. I know that this Dusknoir is never really going to full send a DP into us. I bring in Togekiss. I'm going to send this Psyshock here just to make sure that I knock this thing out because the fast move pressure from it is a little much. My opponent brings in Cradley, and it's looking a little bit dire at this point. I know I can't really shield this and throw my Aura Sphere because it's just not... my opponent is going to be able to just farm up and just knock out my Marowak with a Rock Tomb or whatever. So I'm going to bring in my Marowak, keep my shield. I will be shielding this undeniable Rock Tomb, but hopefully the fast move pressure is enough here. My opponent pivots to Corviknight, which is definitely not the play, but we're able to mud slap down the Cradley, thankfully. And honestly, we did survive the acid there, so maybe we even get another Bone Club off, but extremely close game there. On to the next game, we see Carbink in the lead, and yeah, this is just looking absolutely dreadful. When you see Carbink in the lead, you better bet that there are 2 very hard answers to Mud Slappers in the back. And lo and behold, they really do. They bring in a Toedscruel here, and honestly, I mean, I just have to get resources from this thing. I can't just let this go. I can't, you know, just keep the alignment how they want it. Maybe I should have, but I need to try to make a play for switch here. I throw a mud slap and I try to pivot into my Togekiss, but the switch timer was 1 millisecond too late there, and we cannot get that off. I try to get my body slam off here, and the game acts extremely weird. Nothing crazy did happen here, but it was definitely not ideal either. Thankfully though, we are able to get all shields down, so hopefully my Marowak can one-shot something in the back. That would be ideal, but once again, I mean, these teams are usually double slap answers. So we bring in Marowak. My opponent has a Shadow Annihilate in the back, and honestly, this isn't the absolute worst Pokemon to see, but unfortunately, Bone Club will not be enough to knock this thing out. They will be able to get a Rage Fist off, which probably knocks out here anyways. They actually close combat, which definitely knocks out. And yeah, it does not matter how much energy we have in this Togekiss. Maybe if we already had 100 energy and we could get to 3 Aura Spheres, it would have been a little bit closer. But as you can see from this Aura Sphere damage, we are not even 3-shotting here. So let's just expedite this process here and give up this game. Very unfortunate for us there. All right, we see Drifblim in the lead in the next match, and honestly, this is exactly where I want to see this Pokemon. I have a double slap backline, I have 0 fast move pressure into this Pokemon, and this Pokemon has not only a lot of fast move pressure, but a super effective Icy Wind into one of my Mud Slappers, so I really don't want that Pokemon on them. My opponent actually throws on alignment here, which is really nice for me because that means that if I shield this move, I should be able to severely outpace the next 2 moves, right? Or at least cap tie. So we're going to throw the Psyshock there. My opponent does let it go since we are debuffed now. And I think at this point, I don't want to go down all shields before they do. So I'm going to bring in my Gastrodon. My opponent waits there for some reason. I don't think that would have changed much. They should just get a Shadow Ball here regardless. My opponent gets a little bit greedy and they throw the Icy Wind, which is totally fine by me. So I'm going to bank the Water Pulse on Gastro, get an energy lead with my K-Whack, and they have their own K-Whack in the back. So honestly, this might be a decent spot to be in, especially because we're up that singular Mud Slap. But I'm still a little bit scared of what might be back there. I don't think I want to shield this Bone Club since I still outpace, but it is a little bit scary. I should be able to knock out with this Bone Club, and if my opponent shields it, they should be able to farm all the way down. They don't shield, and it's a Cradily in the back. We should have a lot of play into this thing, but unfortunately, as you guys can see, this is a Bullet Seed Cradily. Literally the only Bullet Seed Cradily in the entire game. And unfortunately for us, that is going to be just enough to get rid of us here. We do have the Water Pulse here, but unfortunately, since Bullet Seed Cradily does have slightly better pacing, they are going to be able to outpace us to the next move, especially with that Rock Tomb debuff. Honestly, even if we no-shielded Rock Tomb there, it wouldn't have really mattered. They just go for fast moves regardless. But yeah, extremely close game there. Super unlucky with the team comp there, but oh well. On to the next team here, though. We have Corviknight, Goodra, and a Azumarill. I can't say this team did particularly well, but I will say that Corviknight lead was very decent throughout these battles. We saw quite a few Hydro Cannoners. I don't know how you would say that, but we saw quite a few of them, and honestly, Corviknight doesn't have an absolute terrible matchup against them. I make a little bit of a misplay there, baiting with the Air Cutter. I guess that's kind of a 50-50, but man, it takes some really big balls to no shield a payback on a Shadow Empoleon. So very well played by my opponent there. I bring in Goodra, just trying to get a full farm out of the Empoleon, but my opponent is not going to let that happen. They bring in their Primeape, Shadow Primeape at that, and I'm just going to bring in my Azumarill so I can maybe get a shield and, try and neutralize this Pokemon. Unfortunately for me, though, I am thinking this is probably the double Ape backline. So a lot of people run, a neutral or semi-neutral Pokemon in the lead, and then they have Primeape as a safe swap and Annihilape in the back. So Primeape is in charge of trying to take switch advantage or shield advantage or something like that. That last Rage Fist barely doesn't knock us out, so I'm hoping that we can make a catch or something like that later on in the game. And lo and behold, it is that Annihilape in the back. So unfortunately for us, it looks like our shields are not going to be very useful. If anything, I don't think we're going to be able to shield anything. They bring in Empoleon here, and I do get the full farm down, but unfortunately, I'm not going to get 2 moves off, right? So I throw the Thunder Punch since it does slightly more damage. The Annihilape stays at 1 HP. We cannot get the bubble through, and unfortunately, we lose that game by a very thin margin. Honestly, a very cool team for my opponent, but yeah, unfortunately, Annihilape is kind of just like a tap, tap, tap my screen Pokemon, right? On to the next battle here, we got Dragonair in the lead, and honestly, this isn't a completely terrible matchup, but Dragonair has a very, very good pacing move with Aqua Tail, so it looks like 2 Aqua Tails will come pretty close to knocking out here. I do like baiting quite a bit with the Air Cutters here with the Corviknight, especially against squishy Pokemon. Getting that first bait does mean that I will get to the second payback. before they get to their third Aquatail. So if they want to double shield their Dinair, that is completely fine by me. I have a pretty good answer to this with my Azumarill. However, I do not want to allow that farm down to happen. So I'm going to bring in my Goodra, and hopefully 2-shield Azumarill can put in some work in the back. My opponent throws a Wrap, and there is a Steelix coming in. Honestly, I don't know why you would bring a Steelix into a Goodra, especially a Goodra with energy, but I am completely fine by that. It looks like 2 Aquatails would come pretty damn close to knocking this thing out, and I certainly do not want to see this on my Azumarill, so I am completely fine by that. My opponent actually doesn't even throw a move. They let the farm down happen. They bring in Araquanid, and we have the perfect answer to this Pokemon. We bring in Azumarill. That should be a GG. Honestly, if my opponent brought in Araquanid into Goodra and the Steelix into our Azumarill, we would have been cooked that game. But thanks for that. All right, we see Swampert in the lead, but thankfully for us, this is a non-shadow Swampert, which means that we should be able to survive 2 Hydro Cannons here. Definitely not very common to say, to have a Pokemon survive 2 Hydro Cannons, but yeah, as you can see, we are still in the green there after the 5 Mud Shots. Actually, it was, I believe, 6 Mud Shots in the move, so we should be able to comfortably survive the next Hydro Cannon here. I do just throw the Air Cutter here, though, because my opponent is playing this very smart. They are getting a lot of fast move pressure with the Mud Shots. They're trying to get as much damage as they can there, and guaranteeing that the next Hydro will knock out. So what I do is I throw the Air Cutter, I get a boost, bait my opponent to throwing energy into my Corviknight, and we catch the Hydro Cannon. I'm farming up a bunch of energy, just expecting a catch from my opponent. I really don't have to shield again on the Goodra, so I do not mind if they if they throw all of their energy into my Goodra. And they bring in a Jump Bluff. So thankfully, these neutral Thunder Punches are going to be able to put in a little bit of work. This is one of the reasons why you probably wouldn't want to run Power Whip Aquatail Goodra. But yeah, we make yet another very decent catch into our Corviknight. My opponent throws the Acrobatics, and that is going to be resisted damage. So thankfully, we're able to survive that, get to another Air Cutter, putting quite a bit of damage into this Pokemon. My opponent brings in a Blastoise, and once again, Corviknight with the absolutely ridiculous bulk. We are able to get to another Air Cutter here, putting a lot of work into this Blastoise for the amount of farm they're getting. And at this point, I'm just going to bring in Azumarill and just tank moves. Azumarill is practically useless at this point. I think the energy on my Goodra and the management of the same should be enough to win this game. So I will be tanking these Skull Bashes, which certainly do quite a lot of damage. But if I can get this Play Rough through and maybe bait my opponent into no shielding this because of that buff, then we might be in a decent spot. My opponent does shield a Play Rough though, which is definitely a good play, but once again, I still don't have to shield a move here. My opponent is waiting so much to make sure we're not making catches, but buddy, Goodra is my win con. I am not making a catch on Goodra. I am keeping Azumarill here and just throwing it away. We land the Play Rough. Aquatail should come pretty close to knocking out this Blastoise, although they are double boosted with the Skull Bash, so maybe not. Thankfully though, they bring in Jump Bluff here, which is certainly a strange play. I guess they were just trying to grasp at straws at this point, because Jump Bluff coming in means that I can get a full farm down. I know Swampert has a move, so I'm just going to instantly throw my Aquatail here, knock out the Swampert. I still have a shield for the Blastoise, and we're able to farm them down and take that game. Very, very fun stuff. All right, on to the final set of battles here. Like I told you guys, this was one of my favorite teams of the night. And if you have been watching these last videos, it does have Malamar. Malamar has been absolutely ridiculous in this Go Battle Weekend for me. And yeah, I would certainly recommend it. If I could make some changes to this team, I might use Shadow Malamar. I will say the bulk on non-Shadow Malamar is really, really decent. But the non-Shadow Malamar does lose quite a bit more than the Shadow Malamar, ironically, just because you don't really get to farm things down as much as you should. But thankfully the bulk does pay off here against this Shadow Typhlosion, because we are able to get a full Sidewave farm down after the 2-shield matchup, and we have some energy left over for this Talonflame. Unfortunately, we are out of shields at this point, so even though we did guarantee switch, it is a little bit rough for us. Thankfully though, there is a freaking Toedscruel back there, so yeah, being able to flip switch right there was incredibly good for us. I bring in Altaria, and honestly, Altaria still doesn't really have to worry about any wraps here. So I'm just going to be able to severely overfarm, have some energy ready for that Talonflame when it comes back in. And I want to make sure I do not give this Talonflame too much energy head start, right? So if I have a bunch of energy to throw, I'll be able to do 5 more Dragon Breaths in the move. 2, 3, 4, well, I guess 4 actually, to not throw on alignment. We throw the Sky Attack here just to burn the clock. We bring in our Empoleon, able to outpace to the Hydro Cannon here, and that's going to be a good game. Honestly, very masterfully played. As you can see in the top right, my battery is at 22% and charging, so kind of ridiculous since we started the day at 100%. So yeah, once we get closer to that 20% and such, we know that we're almost by the end of the day. We see Dusknoir in the lead in the next match. Honestly, definitely not the best lead to see. Don't really have an exact answer to this Pokemon. Malamar up energy is definitely an answer, but we are not up energy, so I don't really want to bring it in here. I'm going to keep my Empoleon in here, hopefully get both shields from my opponent here. It looks like they're a little bit scared of my Empoleon, so hopefully we can give some use to it later on. I'm going to bring in Altaria just because I know I don't get one shot by DP, so if I have to take a Shadow Punch, I'd rather take it on the Altaria than having to shield a potential Dynamic Punch on my Malamar. My opponent brings in Diggersby as their Altaria answer, which is absolutely ridiculous. Maybe I should have shielded my Altaria there, because they seem to not have a single answer to this thing. Hopefully we can make something happen here though. My opponent did burn the clock quite a bit with their Dusknoir, so if I can pivot out of this matchup, that might be pretty good for me. I'm going to bank all this energy, bring in Empoleon, force this Diggersby to throw a bunch of energy into me, and then we're going to wait down our clock and bring in Malamar. I'm hoping that all the residual energy I have on my Altaria will give me some play towards the end game. Again, a little bit weird that they brought Diggersby into this Altaria instead of their back Pokemon. I'm hoping that maybe it's a Gastrodon or something like that. I shield up the Fire Punch bait, which is definitely not great. My opponent brings in Dusknoir, and I know this thing has quite a bit of energy from the Empoleon / Altaria matchup, and look at that, it's freaking Togekiss in the back. So at this point you probably think the game is completely over, but check this crap out. It looks like double Sky Attack will take the cake against this Togekiss. Honestly, I am extremely confused. I don't know why they wouldn't just bring Togekiss into Altaria right there when we were still kind of switch locked. Bringing in Diggersby is just such a weird play, but regardless, we had Malamar for Diggersby, so it was still a winning matchup. All right, we see Cradily in the lead in the next match onto our Empoleon. Very, very decent lead. My opponent answers with a Corviknight, which honestly is a pretty scary Pokemon for us to see. But believe it or not, Altaria has a really decent matchup here. Depending on the Corviknight and their breakpoints, we should be able to comfortably survive 2 paybacks here, and they cannot survive a Flamethrower very comfortably. So if my opponent wants to keep switch advantage, they're going to have to shield this Flamethrower, which they don't. And at this point, it looks like we should be able to Dragon Breath them all the way down. So my opponent is going to bank a bunch of energy, bring in their own Cradily, and at this point, I could just farm up a bunch of energy myself and bring back in my Empoleon. I know that a Rock Tomb or a Grass Knot are really not going to do any significant damage into this Empoleon, especially with those acids being double resisted there. So I can severely overfarm here, play to the Captai against this Cradily, and come out with a bunch of energy ready for whatever comes in. If my opponent wants to get rid of my Empoleon with their Corv, they're going to have to throw an Air Cutter. So they bring in Dusknoir, they get 2 Astonish Hair Start, and I feel like this game is already over. Malamar having a shield advantage at this point. It does not matter if they have the 2 Astonish head start there. I can just bring in Altaria here. I know that I can get to a Sky Attack, and now that they bring in Corviknight and they have no shields, I have no incentive to shield any of these moves. My opponent baits with an Air Cutter, which again, I guess it's a valiant effort, but I know Malamar is gonna take the cake here. I still have 2 shields and Dusknoir has none, so GG's to my opponent there. Very well played, but unfortunately Malamar is just too powerful. All right, we see Como-O in the next battle, and honestly, this Pokemon is a little bit scary. It has play into my entire team, and even though all of my team members have positive matchups into it, it can definitely put in quite a bit of work. So I'm gonna make a catch into my Altaria here. We catch the upper hand, which is really good. My opponent stays in, so they're gonna throw a Clanging Scales to force a shield here. I should have thrown the Sky Attack as soon as I could. I was just fearful of a catch. My opponent makes an amazing play, and they double upper hand. Very, very risky play, I gotta say. I do not think that is the play to make, just because they had already gotten a debuff with the first upper hand. But regardless, it does work out for them. I have to throw the double Sky Attack into this Cradily so I can burn the clock and just burn this matchup up. I should be able to get a full Metal Sound farm down into this thing, so my opponent is incentivized to kind of pivot out of this matchup, but they can't quite yet. Como-O probably comes back in, and this thing has so much energy. I mean, the new pacing with Dragon Tail is 4-3-3-3 to these upper hands. So yeah, very, very spooky. We do have the back-to-back drill picks at this point, and I don't think I can survive another Dragon Tail. Thankfully though, my opponent does let it go, and a little bit of a tragedy happens here. I throw my Hydro Cannon instantly in fears that I will get Mud Slap down, but it's a Talonflame, and unfortunately my opponent does get denied. So that's an entire Incinerate that they were denied there. Maybe if they didn't get denied, they could have had a chance, but I have to say, if they don't throw the Brave Bird into my Malamar with that extra Incinerate they got, they still lose the game, right? So they do have to Brave Bird. We would have been able to cap tie on the Brave Bird there and get our foul play off after or before or whatever. So I think the game would have still been a win, but it should have been a lot closer than it was. All right, we see a really tricky lead in the next match. Empoleon into Greninja. Not a positive matchup for Empoleon whatsoever. They do severely outpace to these Night Slashes, which it looks like two of them come pretty close to knocking out. And of course, Altaria has an amazing matchup here, but Malamar has an even worse matchup than Empoleon. So we do kind of just have to stay into this matchup, kind of sack Empoleon. Can't really do much with this Pokemon, and I want to have this aligned into my Altaria if I can. So we bring in Altaria. Greninja does one more Water Shuriken, so they do have a move banked, and my opponent brings in Corsola here. So this is getting a little bit scary. Like I said, the non-Shadow Malamar into the Corsola is not an amazing matchup just because you cannot Sidewave down after Foul Play lands. So it does kind of force our hand here. I'm going to play to the cap tie against this Corsola. Extremely risky, I know, but I'm trying to maximize the amount of energy I have. My opponent brings in Greninja. They get to a last second move on 1 HP. Those double resisted Psywaves were definitely not doing enough there. My opponent has a Caesar in the back with 2 shields, and this game looks like it's over. I'm just hoping at this point that I can get to 2 moves on my Altaria. Thankfully, I did bank quite a bit of energy from that Corsola / Greninja matchup, so hopefully we can get to 2 moves here. Thankfully, my opponent doesn't boost. We have to make sure we're throwing on good timing here with Altaria because these bullet punches do shred us. And yeah, it's getting close, man. We're still in the yellow. This is the rank 2 shiny Altaria. Can we survive this Night Slash and the bullet punch? We do. We get to the last second Sky Attack. We are able to take this game by the thinnest of margins, and that is going to do it for today's video. Honestly, Malamar, like I've been saying, Malamar was my absolute GOAT in the Go Battle weekend. I am definitely very interested in trying Malamar more. I want to try it in more teams and new teams. There's just so many bug bite users at the moment that it feels a little bit scary. But regardless, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and leave me some comments down below. I appreciate any single type of feedback that I get from you guys. So thanks again for watching, and I will see you guys in tomorrow's video. Bye-bye.